Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 235th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. In the KMF Collective Studio with me today, I have former basketball and softball player and dancer and family advocate at Children's Cove, Mel Sachs. How are you doing, Mel?
Hey, I'm great. How are you? This is great to be here today.
Well, thanks. And I'm doing great, Mel. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Super excited to dive in and learn about your story.
Yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm humbled to share it with all your listeners and with you as well.
Well, thanks, Mel. And Mel, just to get the ball rolling and to learn a little bit more about your background, can you share with us where you grew up and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Sure. So I grew up in a small town in New Hampshire. Mm-hmm. I started sports as far back as I can remember. I started dance at the age of 2. I was over 5 weeks early, so I was a preemie. So the doctors had suggested I had some leg issues when I was born, so they had suggested trying to get me into some strengthening or some activity that would strengthen my legs. And so my mom actually got approval. Usually dance studios start kids around 3 years old, but my mom got me connected to a studio when I was just 2, and it changed my life for the better forever. I never had issues again with my legs. And so it definitely strengthened my body and gave me a lot of years of memories for sure.
Wow. And so why specifically dance? Why was that the sport your mom chose to put you in?
I actually have never asked her that question. That would be a great question to ask her. I think it was just kind of, she knew that probably, gymnastics was really kind of strenuous and dance was kind of like self-motivated and kind of do what you feel comfortable doing kind of thing, or like kind of grow with the class. And so I think that, and we had a dance studio in my hometown, so I think that's kind of what prompted her. And I'm sure she knew other parents who put their kids in as well. And I actually met my best friend of 27 years in that dance class. We were both 2 and 3 years old.
Oh, that's so sweet, making lifelong friendships.
Yeah. So that's really where dance comes in. But I also was an avid softball player, and I played basketball as well. I started t-ball at 5 years old and basketball around the same age.
Wow. And so, Mel, from that young age, playing softball and basketball, and then too being in dance, did you kind of split your time between those 3 sports as you got older, or did as you get older kind of really start to focus in on one of those sports?
Yeah, so I stopped dance actually at around age 11 from what I remember. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it was as a result of some trauma that I had been through as a kid, and going into 11, 12 years old, I had kind of 2 significant events of sexual abuse and sexual assault. And so dance was a really hard sport for me to continue because it was really focused on the body. And I had a really hard time connecting with my body after those 2 situations. So I actually opted to quit dance. I actually went back a couple years later to try again, and then I still struggled. So I just kind of stopped dancing for many years, and I actually got back to it recently, which I can talk about later. So really it became basketball and softball. Basketball was more of a difficult sport for me, I think. I was more of a natural softball player, but basketball I had to work really hard to kind of make the teams I was trying to get on. It wasn't natural to me. I did a lot of coaching and training in the summers before I would try out for my school team. And, I kind of made varsity by the skin of my teeth. I had to work really hard to get there, but I had really great coaches in my life. And I actually have a cool story about basketball. I got cut from my middle school team, but my whole travel team made it. And so I was the only one on my travel team that did not make the school team. And that coach that cut me, actually years later, I actually ended up working for him as a coach at his basketball camp. So that's a cool story. And we actually tell that story. We do like a coach talk. We used to do a coach talk in the middle of the week. And he had me tell that story to the kids that, you know, kind of never give up, because I did go on to play varsity basketball after I got cut from middle school.
Wow.
You know, and so it was really just a powerful, you know, powerful story to be able to tell kids to kind of never give up, even if you're disappointed or don't make a team that you want to be on. Just if you love the sport, keep going.
Yeah.
And softball was really my love, my sport. You know, but all the trauma that I had kind of been through growing up, really kind of, I took a hit to my confidence. So as much as I played and I played for school, in middle school, I didn't have the confidence to try out for any sport because I was in the midst of my abuse, and then the case went to trial. And so I was really very focused on that and was nervous about trying out for sports I played my whole life.
Wow.
So I went into high school with kind of a newfound confidence. All that was starting to be behind me. And I tried out for both basketball and softball, and I played, you know, I didn't play, I played all, it's funny, I played all 4 years of basketball, and then I did not play all 4 years of softball. But I played on plenty of travel teams and did a lot of softball outside of school.
Jeez. And I mean, having gone through something so traumatic at such a young age, but then too, I mean, it seems that, I guess to some degree, you said it, and going into high school, you were able to gain your confidence back and find, I guess, your release again by going out for basketball, going out for softball, and continuing on with those sports that you had found a love for.
Yeah. And those sports, I think I said this to you in our emails back and forth, is sports really were a part of my pain, but also a part of my healing. You know, it was painful for me to struggle in basketball. A lot of that was with trying to remember plays because my mind was so much everywhere else a lot of the time. So I wasn't getting a lot of playing time because I couldn't remember plays. But I still stuck it out till my senior year, and you know, didn't get a ton of playing time, but I was part of the team, and I did feel accomplished that I did make it. But, you know, I look back now and I think if my mind had been more clear, you know, without all that trauma and going through a trial and going through all the aftermath of that, I think I really could have been an incredible athlete. I think I still was in a lot of ways. I mean, I was a pitcher for softball. You know, I'm actually, I look back now and I still got the basketball thing going. You know, but, you know, it's just, you know, I think my mind is just obviously in a different place these days. And I still play softball. I'm on like 4 or 5 teams every summer in adult softball leagues here where I live now. I live on Cape Cod in Massachusetts. And I just, you know, that sport is, you know, has been the constant even when dance and basketball couldn't be. It was something I always enjoyed, and there was not a lot of pressure because I was natural at it. And so, you know, I think that's, you know, and it's definitely a great stress relief still.
Yeah.
And although I don't pitch anymore, sometimes I'll go out and pitch with friends, or, you know, if catchers need practice, I'll throw to them. And so it stayed pretty consistent. I actually just had a birthday and I got a brand new softball bat and bat bag. And I'm really excited for next season because we didn't have a season here this summer because of everything going on. So
that stinks, but that's exciting. I mean, 1, happy birthday, and 2, that's great. You get some new equipment to use, to look forward to for next season.
Yeah.
And so, Mel, I mean, again, going through this period of your life, and then, like you said, there was something about softball that you really loved and dove into, and to this day, it's something that just has your heart. So, I mean, like you said, you had that natural aptitude for the sport. It felt and kind of came easily to you, but what was it, or what is it specifically about softball that really kind of created that release for you, allowed you to immerse yourself in the game and kind of forget?
Yeah, and I think it's more of it's a lot of it is a mental game, especially pitching and hitting.
Yeah.
Really. So I really kind of, that was the one thing, and I would get it. You know, basketball things didn't come as easily to me, so it felt like more of work to kind of get those things to stick. But for softball, I really, you know, I was called a kind of power hitter when I was younger, when I was like 10 or 11, again, I had been playing since I was 5, but one of my favorite people on this planet is one of my coaches. I actually was really good friends with all of her daughters at one point, but she was a coach in my hometown. She's still in my life today. I've been to her daughter's weddings. They'll be at mine. We've just stayed in touch all these years, and she's been not only a huge asset to me in that sport. She was a great coach. She always encouraged me. She always gave me opportunities, in pitching and different things. And, and she's kind of walked with me through all of the trauma that I went through as well. We're really close family friends. And so, I think just that mental space that it took to time my hitting and to get those pitches right. And, back to when I was younger, she had given me, I had never pitched before. I was always a catcher for some reason. And we were young, so they would kind of throw us wherever. And I was pretty good at catching, so I just kind of stayed there. I didn't really have a preference. I just loved the sport. I didn't care where they put me. So then one practice, she decided she was going to throw new kids in to pitch the next couple weeks of games. And so she had everyone line up who wanted to pitch, and then had people who wanted to catch. And I was like, well, I'll try pitching. I've never done it before. And so I started pitching, and she didn't tell me, like, she was kind of watching to see who might do well. And then, and it was early on in like, player pitch, when you're like 9, 10. I mean, these days it's a little bit younger that they start doing that, but,
right.
But back then it was, really 9, 10. We were just starting to pitch at the time, and get out of the coach pitch kind of situation. And, she had me the next game pitching, and I struck out 12 batters. Wow. And, she gave me this game ball, and she wrote Mel the Gunner on it. And so, like, I always kind of held on to that confidence that that coach had given me, and she would always come in the circle. And, other coaches that I had really always believed in me, even in my darkest times. And, softball was really something that I was able to find kind of victory over my circumstances through. I felt good when I was playing. I felt successful when I was playing. I felt like I was getting something, that my mind was working for me for something and not against me, like everything else. And, we actually played at a field where one of my sexual assaults took place. It was outside of an elementary school, kind of in the woods area, one of them, when I was 12. And so one of the main fields that we play on was at that elementary school, and you could kind of see it in the distance where it happened. And so when I was pitching, I would turn around to go back into the circle, and I would see that spot. And so being able to go back there and kind of face the worst thing that ever happened to me, and to still be successful in my sport, kind of literally in the face of that, was so, so powerful for me through the years.
Gosh, I mean, I can't imagine, but the idea that you were able, even at that age, past that circumstance that you were in, but even still very young, being able to go back to that field and have a different perspective because you allowed yourself to, to overcome. I love what you said, that softball gave you victory over those circumstances. So allowing yourself to dedicate yourself to something you loved and a passion, and having the importance of surrounding yourself with people who will help guide you. Like you said, these coaches that you've had who really saw you through those incredibly dark times. I mean, the importance of having that community, and two, finding the thing that you love, diving into it, knowing that circumstance doesn't define you, and finding a way to discover victory over it.
Yeah. And I always kind of hung on to this quote by Mia Hamm, and I do want to share it because I think it's, really powerful, and a lot of athletes will, probably relate to it. Are you familiar with the "Play for Her" quote by Mia Hamm?
Yes, that's one of my favorites. Please read it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So somewhere behind the athlete you become, and the hours of practice, and the coaches who have pushed you, is a little girl who fell in love with the game and never looked back. Play for her.
Yes.
And I think one of the other versions says, like, the teammates who believed in you. And I think that kind of goes to how I kind of discovered your podcast. In an earlier episode, you talked to Bella, Bring Back the Right Side.
Yeah.
So that's actually how I came across your podcast. And her story really moved me. And, being someone who loves softball and, very, very different circumstances. But I too, again, I'm going to keyword with almost. I thought that I had suffered a spinal cord injury. I was in a plane crash in 2016. And the first thing I looked down at were my legs, and I wasn't sure because I was kind of in shock a little bit. And thank God, I'm a woman of faith as well. So Bella and I have that in common. So I was really just moved by her tenacity and her humor and her reconnection with Allie. That really impacted me. And some of I've been following her on Instagram, and some of the feelings were the same feelings that I had kind of surviving that event. And so very different circumstances, thank God every day for my health and my ability to walk, and, I did have some lower back injuries and some abdominal injuries, but praise God, it wasn't a spinal cord injury. But, it's really amazing to see the redemption in stories like this. And so that, I think, is a common thread, although our stories are very different, that we can both identify with the word redemption in situations. So.
Wow, my goodness. So was it a commercial airline? Was it a small plane?
Yeah, it was a small plane. It was a Cessna 22, I believe it was, or something along those lines. It's just a 4-seater. I was just, it was actually after a softball game. I went up for kind of a scenic flight. That's what people do around here. People who have private planes. It's like kind of not a huge thing, but kind of a thing on the Cape. It's like vacation destination, and there's some some high-end communities around here. And so I knew someone who had one, and it just went wrong. And so, when I walk through my survivor journey, being a survivor in more than one way of more than one thing, sports are always a thread through that, both for my pain and both for my healing. So that was really powerful, a powerful experience. And it's hard to explain the ways that I kind of identify with Bella's story, but it's a really, really cool thread, and it started here on your podcast.
Well, I can't tell you how much that means to me, Mel. That's honestly, like, I'm at a loss for words. I love that you were able to hear her story and that it resonated with you so much. And you were already leading this life of overcoming and resiliency. And like you said, redemption, you had that redemptive story, and that's what it is. And of course, Bella, you both have different stories and different journeys that you've led, but it's, being able to listen to someone else's journey and really resonate with it and say, yeah, I walked through that too. Yeah, I had those exact same feelings and pitfalls and struggles. So being able to relate to that, and that is literally what this whole platform was about, trying to bring those people together, and so that you're not walking through anything alone.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah. Well, yes. So Mel, wow, just thank you. So for you, Mel, so coming up then through high school, and then of course today still playing softball, when you were coming towards the end of your high school career, did you have aspirations to continue to play at the next level? Did you know that maybe your softball career, as far as an organized sport, was going to come to an end, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I was split completely down the middle. Because of the freshman and sophomore year, I did not play softball for my school, so it wasn't as available to me to be kind of recruited to play in college, just because, again, that confidence thing, I, wavered in that for so many years. And so my freshman year at college, I went to a school in New Hampshire where a lot of my previous teammates or girls that I coached went to play. And I ended up, in my hometown, I did a lot of coaching. So I got to know the game from that other side. And I considered walking on. I had talked to the coach. I had emailed the coach for the school to see if there was an opportunity. It was a Division III school. So he had said, you can come and, if we're looking for a player, you might as well just come and kind of see how it is, how it goes. And, but I actually never ended up following through with that. I got to school and I just really kind of got boots on the ground with my, my aspirations for my career. And as you said in the beginning, I work as a family advocate now at a child advocacy center. and there's 850 of them across the country and 12 in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I went through a child advocacy center when I was a kid about my own trauma, and so this is really a full circle story. And honestly, not playing softball in college was probably the best for me, because I had the opportunity to do a lot of other things with my career, volunteering, getting involved in other organizations that really helped me build my resume, volunteering at different camps. There's a camp in Maine that I adore for kids with life-threatening illnesses and their families, or families that have lost a child, and that place has changed my life in more ways than one. And so if I had played softball, I really wouldn't have had those opportunities to do new things that I would never have the chance to do again. So I think I went through some times when I would go to the games to kind of support the girls that I coached or girls that I had played with through the years. I would have that kind of FOMO, fear of missing out, or like would be, dying to get back on the field. But, I did play recreationally, and I did actually play on a 18 and over fast pitch league for a little while. And then I just kind of joined some slow pitch leagues, and that was enough for me to just still play the game. And, there's not as much pressure when you're just playing with another group of women, or co-ed, or, and pitching, for me, pitching kind of came to an end, because trying to adapt from being a fast pitcher to a slow pitcher is very difficult.
Okay.
So many times I tried a couple times, but they're like too fast, or not enough arc, or so that was an adjustment, and that was not something that I found that came easy years later. So I just kind of I love the hot corner, so I love my third base, and I'm totally content playing over there, and kind of migrated over to shortstop and second a little bit, depending on the league that I was playing in. So, and first sometimes. And so it's kind of that freedom, like when we were a little kid, like where they kind of move you around wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
So, that's been super fun to just kind of play wherever. I've played a little short field. I'm not an outfielder, but played a little short field in my life, a little left field, in my adult life playing softball. So, it's been really fun to just get to know some teams here. And, I've still had successes in that, even though it's not at a super competitive level. I've been able to, most years that I've been here 5 years now, and except for this year, I've made the All-Star game.
Wow.
So that's really cool that they do that. They just they have the umps pick, in our women's league, the kind of top players from each team. And they do a game against each other, against the Sunday co-ed girls. So, that's really cool that they do that and give us opportunities to relive our glory days. But yeah, so it's been fun just to do that with kind of no pressure.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, being able to really dive back into the world of softball and give back. I mean, continue to do the sport that just really took your heart at such a young age, and just continuing that and having that love be fostered over and over again. And so, Mel, for you, I mean, when you when you made that decision to go to college, to not continue your softball career, and that, like you said, ended up being a really great decision for you, because now you still get to play softball, but at that time it allowed you to dive deep and discover what it was that you wanted to do next with your life. And so at that time, did you know you wanted to go into family advocacy based upon your own life experiences, or was it just that was something that kind of came up over time?
Yeah, I actually knew that that's something I wanted to do since I was 15 years old.
Wow.
When I was 14, one of my cases went to trial, and I went through the whole kind of court system and gave a victim impact statement on the stand in front of him. And I knew in that moment that I would not have made it to that point without the people that surrounded me in the process. So victim advocates, the police officer who arrested him, and the forensic interviewer who interviewed me at the Child Advocacy Center. And they kind of became what I called my dream team. They kind of believed in me in the same way that my coaches believed in me as a child. Yeah. And growing up. They really believed in me and being able to make it through this lengthy and somewhat traumatic process after the trauma, and really getting to the other side of finding my voice and using my voice to help other people. And I actually just did a presentation with the two of them, with my forensic interviewer and the detective that was on my case over 15 years ago, at a conference in our state. And I've traveled around and done that presentation in different states for different conferences to kind of talk about that full circle journey and how they believed in me, and how important that was, and kind of what led me to my career and things like that. And so I really knew that I wanted to do it at 15, but I wasn't ready. So it took some years. And so again, back to that confidence, kind of building up my confidence, working through some of the trauma that would have impacted my job if I had gotten it too early. And I think having that discernment for me, and I also found my faith in the midst of this time. So, I defined my faith, and, that was really a big impact of kind of carrying out my purpose. I knew that my pain had to be for a purpose. And so really being able to kind of turn that into something positive and into something where I could not only help people, but I could change lives forever, and to really elevate alongside me other survivors' voices, and kind of fight for survivors the way that people fought for me. So that's been really powerful to kind of live that out for the past 7 years that I've been in the field.
I mean, making that decision, knowing what you were going to do, and also recognizing that you were not quite ready yet, but it was something that you wanted to advocate for, and be that voice and be that person to help someone just like you had been helped in your own journey. But Mel, I mean, how did you come to that conclusion? I mean, because it's just going through something so traumatic at such a young age, I imagine honestly it would have been easy to say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go down this path, and letting it kind of derail you rather than letting it fuel you forward into the journey that you've been on in order to help others that you get to do every day now. So in the crux of that, I guess, how did you decide that? How did you come up with that, rather than letting it just deflate you and defeat you, deciding that, no, this is not going to defeat me, I'm going to press on?
Yeah, I think it was really the people around me that kind of held me up when I couldn't hold myself up, and believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And, one of those people that has been the most influential, just like that coach that was so influential early on in my life, was my forensic interviewer, the woman who interviewed me for the first time when I first told about what happened. For those who don't know, the Child Advocacy Center model is really child-focused, victim-centered, and it's interviewing kids who've been through, from ages pretty much 2 to 17, who've been through any type of sexual assault, sexual abuse, different other crimes that can be committed against kids and teens. And she really, we lost contact after that initial interview in 2004, and we reconnected in 2011. I had been looking for her to thank her, and she had kind of moved on from one job to another. And I, met with her for coffee, and they had given me a teddy bear when I left there as kind of a token of my courage, and I still had it and was able to show that to her. And it had the word hope on its foot. And that stuck out to me when I was leaving there that day, because for the first time since my abuse happened, I felt hope for myself. I felt hope for my future. And that was where that really sparked, is just seeing that word hope and knowing for the first time since it happened that was possible for me, although it didn't happen right away. I went through many years of kind of turmoil, going through self-injury. I was cutting. I was kind of self-destructive. I was, kind of tormented by the things he said to me, and the nightmares and the flashbacks and the lack of sleep, and the fear, and, all those things that can come, with that type of violation. But it was reconnecting with that interviewer. I was already in college at that time and already started to pursue this career. But it was solidifying to me that she still believed in me, and she was going to help me get there. And so she had, given me an internship at a local child advocacy center to my college. And so that was really the test to see if I could do this job. And so, to kind of see how I was doing mentally with it. And I've always been really in touch with, that's why at 15 I didn't go right for it,
Right.
I did attempt to try to get an internship for my high school at the court that I went through, but they, for obvious reasons, were like, we can't do that just yet. It's been too short of a time in between when you were here as kind of a client. And so that was heartbreaking to me at first because I wanted it so bad, but that was such a protection for me, because if I had gone into it back then, I don't know that I would still be in it now. Wow. I think it would have kind of burnt me out, and I would have not been able to. I still had a lot of healing to do from when I was 15 till now. And I still do. One of the biggest things is that healing is not linear. And I love, to be able to tell people that, because I think, we're human. We like to compare ourselves to other people's journeys. But I think, everyone can relate with healing is not linear. Sometimes you feel like, oh, I've already been through that. I've already healed from that. And then years later, it'll come up again, in a different milestone or something, especially for survivors of sexual trauma. So, just really being able to be that hope and light, and having people behind me, like knowing I could fall back on people if I kind of put myself out there and put my story out there, that kind of having an army around me, an army that went before me. I connected with many other survivors in the early years of my healing journey that kind of were cheering me on from the sidelines, and, just like a teammate. And so I think that's been really powerful for me, of kind of spurring me on to kind of come out into the light instead of staying in the darkness.
Wow. Absolutely. I mean, like you said, surrounding yourself with those important people, those people who will lift you up when you feel like you can't lift yourself up. That is key. Having those people around you. And then now in the line of work, that you get to do, you get to be that person for someone. You get to be part of their team. And then too, having the self-awareness at that age to know, okay, I'm not ready yet. This is a path I want to go down, but not yet. And just being honest with yourself and real, and knowing that you were going to fulfill this. It was just at what point in your own journey would you be prepared to do that? And so Mel, now today, leading up to working at the Children's Cove as a family advocate, can you dive into a little bit what that means, what the Children's Cove does, and in your role, what your primary responsibilities are?
Sure. Yeah. So Children's Cove is part of a kind of national network of child advocacy centers. Again, just like I said earlier, we work with kids 2 to 17 and over 17 with developmental disabilities that may fall into that age range. We work with kids who face things like sexual abuse, sexual assault, witness to domestic violence, severe physical abuse, and human trafficking, otherwise known as child sexual exploitation. And so we're kind of the response with law enforcement, DCF or child protection, and, anyone that's kind of surrounding that child and family, the non-offending caregiver, the parents, the family members, and when an allegation has been made, if there's been like a mandated report filed, we're the kind of that response along with law enforcement, along with child protection, to get the child interviewed in a child-friendly setting, or to get the child at least services in a child-friendly setting, in a family encompassed setting. So in my role as family advocate, I really am there to walk the family through any and all things they have to go through, kind of like what my team did for me. I had an advocate for the court, for the trial, and I had, people kind of walking with me along the way. And that's really my role now, is to kind of walk hand in hand with families with whatever they have to go through, not only the day that they come to see us, but ongoing for years out, depending on where they need me and what they need. So I'm really, it's a really incredible place to work, especially for me who's lived it. And so being able to kind of channel my pain into such a tangible purpose that is so related to what I went through. And, it's really been such an incredible journey to kind of travel the road to get here. And, I feel completely humbled and honored every day to work. It can be tough work still, even if kind of I understand from the other side, it's treacherous work. It's tough work. And my team is amazing. We back each other up. We have days for self-care. We really kind of keep an eye on each other. And, I've had that opportunity to kind of be part of this field for 7 years now, including my time in college. interning. And then for 2 years, I was an advocate at a domestic violence crisis center. So a little bit different, but similar types of crimes, just on adults. So I was walking adults through, the court process and restraining orders and things like that. But I really always wanted to work with kids. So, and to do kind of exactly what helped me when I was going through it. So
Yeah.
the Child Advocacy Center gave me my voice, and that's why I'm even here speaking to you today.
Wow.
So I think that's been really powerful for me to be a part of journeys that I may never know the end result of, but that could be just like mine.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. You never know truly how positively you might be impacting someone, and it's all you're going off of is the fact that you had this experience and you had those people to walk through it with, and that was life-changing for you, so in pursuit of changing somebody else's life too. And so Mel, like you said too, I mean, obviously softball is still a huge part of your life, and so are you still coaching basketball too?
I'm not, but I actually, just this past season, I joined for the first time since I moved here 5 years ago. I joined a women's basketball league. So,
oh, awesome!
So that's been super, super fun to get back into it. And I actually think I play better now than when I was in my prime, because I think a lot of my kind of mind has been cleared out, like I talked about earlier. And so
Right.
That's been really fun to kind of feel like reclaiming what trauma stole from my basketball career, my basketball life. And, but there's still been so much redemption, throughout. I've been coaching softball little ones, the past couple years here. So that's been super fun. And, the opportunities I've had to coach through the years has been such a blessing to me to be able to kind of, channel what I learned from the best coaches that I had, and kind of pouring that into the young kids that I'm able to coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I love, Mel, what you keep saying. It's that redemption, your redemptive story. And it just transcends everything you do. Like you said, working with kids as a coach, in your own life, continuing to play softball and basketball, bringing those loves back into your life. And then being a family advocate. I mean, you get to it touches every area of your life, that redemption. And it's just, it's an amazing thing, that is what is your story.
Yeah, it's amazing and humbling. I mean, and with dance, that's one other thing I wanted to share is that, dance, I quit dance when I was 11, then went back at 13, then quit again. And, for so many years, I was like, I could never go back to that. I could never go back to that. Even though I loved it at one point, I just couldn't even picture like being that close with my body again. And last September, I actually joined a adult dance class here.
That's
a dance
awesome.
studio. Yeah, a dance studio that my friend's sister opened just a couple years ago, and it's an amazing community. And I take adult tap and jazz, and we did a recital last year. It was a little, last season it was a little different because of everything going on. So it was kind of virtual. We recorded outside instead of on a stage, and it was just like a unique experience we'll all remember. And so, but I'm back dancing again, and I'm more connected to my body than I ever have been, since the abuse when I was younger, and just kind of, again, redemptive, redeeming that thing that I never thought I'd get back to. And it was really a series of events of kind of healing from the plane crash and healing from some, internal damage that was left behind by my abuse that I discovered after the plane crash. The plane crash really got me to pay attention to my body, and, and my faith. Like, God really brought me to this place of like, I need to look at this, where did I lose my body along the way, and how can I get back to loving it and caring for it, and getting back into some things that I loved or that would help me with that. And so dance was a no-brainer for that. And it's been such a powerful experience I'm not fully confident yet, but I show up every week. And, I'm regaining that confidence class by class. And so it's been really, really powerful to kind of have this kind of full circle story of, not only the reconnection with my interviewer, but also with the sports that I've always loved.
Man, I mean, that is such a beautiful thing to be able to go back to dance, the thing that you thought you would never be able to do again. And I mean, having in such a, honestly, turn of events at a plane crash, something that, I mean, mentally, physically debilitating, but then have that be a thing that helped catalyze you into, no, I want to reframe this relationship I've had with myself for so many years now and try and rework that. And so then today being able to say, yep, I'm a dancer, I play softball, I'm a basketball player, all those things that I guess for so long you thought you had lost.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was really excited about this podcast, because I've never been able to talk about my journey through the context of sports.
Yeah.
And they were such an integral part of, as you've heard, this entire podcast. They were woven in my story the whole time. So this was a really cool opportunity to kind of walk people through that, and even walk myself through it, of like remembering those times, and a reminder of that redemption is really, really amazing.
Well, I mean, I love hearing that, Mel, and it's true. It's amazing to reflect back on the life that you've led and really see the impact that sports have had on you and the things that you learned through them, the discipline, but really how they just stick with you and the things that you learned from them and how they can still be a really intimate and important part of your life to this day. And so Mel, reflecting back on like this truly amazing journey that you've led of overcoming and persistence and just the redemptive story that you've had and that led you to this point today, and looking forward, knowing of course it's not done yet. You are still going after it and helping all of these young people overcome just like you have overcome. I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
That's a good question. There's probably, if I had more time to think about it, I'd probably have some things, at this point. But I think, really, just turning pain into purpose, really, because I think that can be really powerful at, taking something that was meant for kind of evil and darkness and turning it for good, and I think, with my faith, that's been something I've been shown over and over again. And so, I guess I would like to be known for that, for turning pain into purpose and, evil into good, and just being able to kind of be a lighthouse for others, to be that light in a dark place and to kind of carry the torch before others, just as people carry the torch before me.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.